Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get into the story. Emily rushed out of the restaurant, her heart pounding in her chest as the cool night air hit her skin. She barely noticed the crisp winter wind or the sound of the city bustling around her. All she could think about was the embarrassment of sitting at the wrong table and thinking she was meeting Kevin. Her cheeks burned with shame. She had promised Jenny that she would go through with this blind date, but now she had made a fool of herself. As she walked briskly down the street, she heard her phone buzz again. It was another message from Jenny. Hey, how did it go? Was he cute? Emily let out a frustrated sigh and quickly typed a response. I sat at the wrong table. He wasn't Kevin. I'm an idiot. She paused for a moment, staring at the message before sending it. She couldn't believe she had let herself get into this mess. Her fingers hovered over the screen, debating whether to send a follow-up message, but before she could, her phone buzzed again. It was a new notification. I think you left something behind, the message read. Emily frowned. She opened the message to see a photo of her scarf, her favorite one, the one she had almost forgotten to grab. It was wrapped neatly around the back of a chair. The message was from Liam. She hadn't even realized she had left it behind. Emily stared at the phone for a moment, unsure of what to do. She thought about calling him, but the idea of facing him again, after the awkward departure, made her stomach turn. She felt silly, embarrassed. Still, she couldn't just leave her scarf there. She quickly typed back, Thanks. I'll be back to get it. A few minutes later, she stood in front of the restaurant again, the warmth of the building's lights spilling out onto the street, creating a cozy contrast against the cold air. She hesitated for a moment before walking back inside. The hostess greeted her warmly, recognizing her from earlier. You forgot your scarf, she said with a smile. Emily gave a nervous smile in return and quickly made her way back to the table where Liam had been sitting. She wasn't sure if he was still there or not, but the moment she rounded the corner, she saw him sitting at the same table, his eyes focused on his phone. He didn't look up as she approached, and for a moment, she thought about turning around and walking out. But before she could make up her mind, Liam looked up at her, his expression softening when he saw her. You came back, he said, his voice gentle. Emily smiled awkwardly, holding up the scarf. I left this behind, she said. Thanks again for pointing it out. Liam smiled, a faint but genuine smile. No problem, he said. I'm glad you came back. There was a brief, comfortable silence between them before he added. Would you like to sit down for a moment? We could grab a coffee or something. Emily hesitated. She hadn't planned on staying, but the thought of leaving things as awkward as they were made her uneasy. She nodded slowly. Okay, sure. She took a seat across from him, and the waitress came by to refill his water. Emily took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the earlier embarrassment lift off her shoulders, if only slightly. As she sat there, a strange sense of calm settled over her. They started talking about the most mundane things, work, the weather, their favorite books, and for the first time, the awkwardness seemed to fade. Liam wasn't just the well-dressed, aloof guy from the restaurant. He was normal, genuine. They talked for a while, and Emily found herself relaxing. Her earlier fears of being out of place, of not fitting in, began to fade as she realized that she didn't need to try so hard. After a few minutes, Liam put his phone down and gave her his full attention. I'm glad you came back, he said again, his voice sincere. Emily nodded. Yeah, me too, she said with a smile. I guess I'm a little embarrassed about running out earlier. Liam shrugged slightly, as if it didn't matter. It happens, he said. We've all had those moments. Emily felt a little better at his words. She didn't feel judged. She didn't feel out of place. They weren't talking about anything important, but for some reason, it felt easy. Just two people connecting, despite the bizarre start. As they finished their coffee, Liam gave her a smile that seemed to reach his eyes. I'm sorry if I made things awkward earlier, he said. I wasn't sure how to handle the situation either. Emily smiled back, feeling a flicker of warmth in her chest. It's okay, she said. I'm just glad we're not awkward anymore. Liam chuckled. Me too, he said. Well, I'll let you get going. But I hope we can talk again soon. Emily stood up, feeling lighter than when she had walked in. She gave him a quick nod. Yeah, I'd like that. As she walked out of the restaurant, the cool air felt a little less biting, and the evening didn't seem so bad anymore. She hadn't expected to leave with a new connection, but that's exactly what had happened. She smiled to herself as she made her way back down the street, feeling like maybe, just maybe, this night wasn't a disaster after all. It had been a week since Emily's awkward but unexpectedly pleasant second encounter with Liam. She had almost forgotten about the embarrassing mix-up, and in a strange way, she felt like things had started to feel more natural between them. They had exchanged a few casual texts after that night, mostly about how their days were going, a few comments on the books they were reading, and even a few laughs over how their blind date had gone terribly wrong. Every conversation felt like it was helping her get a little closer to understanding Liam, or at least making her feel like maybe they could be friends. She had grown comfortable with the idea of seeing him again, though she wasn't sure what his true intentions were. Liam, on the other hand, seemed genuinely interested in her. He had reached out more than once to ask how she was doing, making sure she was comfortable in her job and in her life. It wasn't anything particularly special, but to Emily, it felt like a small victory. He was considerate, caring even. It was different from the cold, indifferent people she was used to meeting. The next time they met up, it was at a small cafe downtown. Emily wasn't sure what to expect, but she knew she felt nervous all over again. She tried to calm herself by telling herself that this was just a casual coffee, no pressure. But the moment she stepped inside the cozy cafe, the butterflies in her stomach fluttered. Liam was already seated, his back to the door as he scanned his phone. He looked up as she entered, and his face lit up with a warm smile. "Emily, hey, glad you could make it," he said, standing up to greet her. She smiled back, trying to hide her nerves. "Of course, I wouldn't miss it," she replied, sitting down across from him. The moment she settled into the chair, she felt a sense of relief. The place was cozy, the atmosphere was inviting, and the nerves she had been feeling started to subside. They talked about everything and nothing, about their favorite places to travel, how they both loved the same kind of movies, and how Emily had been trying to save enough money to open her own art studio someday. It felt easy, effortless. But as the conversation flowed, Emily began to notice something that made her pause. Liam was asking a lot of questions. Personal ones. Not just the small talk stuff, but more about her dreams, her ambitions, even the things she hadn't told many people. She hadn't expected him to be so curious. And the more he asked, the more she realized how much she hadn't told anyone, how much she had kept inside. She found herself opening up, telling him things she hadn't shared with anyone in a long time. "I guess I've always wanted to do something more than just work at a diner," Emily said, laughing softly. "But I'm not sure how to start. I don't have the kind of money or connections to make it happen. Sometimes it feels impossible." Liam's gaze softened as he listened to her, his eyes focused and patient. "You'd be surprised how many people have started with nothing," he said, his voice gentle. "The important part is believing in yourself. And sometimes, having the right people around you can make a huge difference." His words were simple, but they resonated with her in a way she hadn't expected. She wasn't sure what it was about Liam that made her feel so comfortable, but there was something about him that made her believe that maybe, just maybe, she could do it. As the afternoon went on, they shared stories about their childhoods, their families, and the dreams they had for the future. By the time they finished their coffee, Emily felt like she had known Liam for far longer than just a week. She didn't know if it was because he was a good listener, or because he had made her feel like her dreams weren't out of reach, but something about him had changed the way she saw the world. "I'm glad we met," she said as they stood up to leave. "Me too," Liam replied, his smile genuine. "I'm glad you came back the other night, even though it was so awkward." Emily chuckled. "It wasn't so bad," she said, feeling the warmth of his presence. "It led to this, didn't it?" He nodded. "Exactly. Sometimes the best things come from the most unexpected moments." As they said their goodbyes and went their separate ways, Emily couldn't help but feel a shift in her life. Something about Liam made her believe that she could take a chance, that maybe it was time for her to start believing in herself too. The days following their coffee date felt different for Emily. She couldn't shake the feeling that something in her life was shifting, and Liam was a part of that change. He wasn't like anyone she had ever met. There was a quiet confidence about him that made her feel at ease, and yet, he was never condescending, never making her feel out of place. It was as if he truly cared about what she had to say. They continued to text occasionally, checking in on each other's days. Liam would ask how her shifts at the diner were going, and Emily found herself looking forward to those little messages. The idea of him being someone she could talk to, someone who genuinely wanted to hear about her day, felt comforting. Emily had been so caught up in surviving the day-to-day, working long shifts just to pay rent, that she hadn't really given herself the time to dream. But now, as she thought more about her art studio and the things she truly wanted, the conversations with Liam made her feel like maybe she could actually make it happen. One Thursday evening, after her shift ended, Emily sat at a small table in the diner with a cup of lukewarm coffee. Her phone buzzed, and she smiled when she saw Liam's name. "Hey, how's your night going?" his message read. She typed back quickly, telling him about her hectic evening, how she had nearly dropped an entire tray of food on a customer, and how the manager had been in a particularly bad mood. As usual, Liam responded with humor, making her laugh despite the stressful day. After a few more messages, Liam wrote, "I've been thinking about our conversation last week. I really think you should go for it. The art studio, I mean. I can help, if you need it." Emily's heart skipped a beat. She stared at the message for a moment, unsure how to respond. She had always dreamed of opening her own studio, but the thought of asking for help, especially from someone like Liam, felt intimidating. She wasn't sure if he was just being polite or if he genuinely meant it. She typed back hesitantly, "I don't know. It's a huge step, and I don't have the resources for it. I don't want to waste anyone's time." Liam's reply was immediate. "Emily, I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but you deserve the chance to make it happen. You don't have to do it alone. Let me know if you want to talk more about it." Emily sat there, staring at the screen. Her pulse quickened. He wasn't offering money, but the idea that he believed in her enough to offer guidance was enough to make her rethink everything. Maybe this was the push she needed. She had always told herself that her dreams were impossible, that her financial situation was too dire to ever make them a reality. But what if she was wrong? The next day, Liam texted her again, this time asking if she wanted to meet for lunch. Emily agreed, wanting to talk more about the studio idea. They met at a small cafe in the city, a place Emily had never been to before. As she sat across from Liam, her nerves returned, but they didn't last long. He greeted her with a warm smile, and once they started talking, she found herself relaxing. "I've been thinking about what you said the other night," Emily began. "About the studio. I don't know if I'm ready to take that kind of leap. It feels like a dream I'm never going to catch." Liam listened quietly, then leaned forward slightly. "It's normal to feel that way," he said. "Every big leap starts with a little faith in yourself. You can't wait for the perfect moment because it may never come. But if you don't try, you'll never know." Emily thought about his words, feeling a flicker of hope that she hadn't felt in a long time. She had spent so much time convincing herself that she couldn't do it, that it was impossible, but now, with Liam sitting across from her, it didn't seem so out of reach. She wasn't sure how it would happen, but for the first time, she felt like maybe it could. "Okay," Emily said, her voice a little shaky. "Maybe you're right. I want to try, but I don't know where to start." Liam smiled, his expression filled with encouragement. "Let's talk about what you need. We can break it down step by step. I can help you find a way." Emily felt a rush of gratitude. It wasn't just about the studio. It was about someone finally seeing her potential and encouraging her to chase her dreams. She hadn't felt like that in years. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of planning and organizing. Liam helped her narrow down the specifics of what she needed: space, equipment, materials, and how to approach potential investors. Though he was offering advice, Emily was the one doing the work. For the first time, she was taking steps toward her dream. And with every move she made, she felt stronger, more confident. One evening, after another long day of organizing and planning, Emily sat in her small apartment, looking over a budget sheet that Liam had helped her create. She couldn't believe how far she had come in such a short time. As she smiled to herself, her phone buzzed. It was another message from Liam. "How's everything going with the studio? I'm proud of you for sticking with it." Emily grinned as she typed back, "Thank you. I really couldn't have done it without your support." She paused for a moment before adding, "You've really changed my life, Liam." She stared at the words on her screen for a second, then hit send. She wasn't sure what it meant, but she knew that something between them had shifted. And maybe, just maybe, She was starting to feel something for him too. The weeks passed in a blur of meetings, plans, and late nights spent working on her art studio. Emily had never felt so alive, so focused. Every day, she was one step closer to turning her dream into reality, and none of it would have been possible without Liam's support. He had guided her, listened to her frustrations, and offered practical advice when she felt overwhelmed. But it wasn't just his help with the studio that had started to mean something more. As they spent more time together, Emily noticed the little things, how he remembered the details she had mentioned in passing, how he always asked about her day, and how he made her feel like she mattered. One evening, after a particularly long day of paperwork, Emily decided to grab a quick coffee at the cafe where she had first met Liam. As she walked in, she was surprised to see him sitting at a table by the window, looking out at the street. He waved when he saw her, his usual smile lighting up his face. "I was hoping you'd show up," he said as she approached. She sat down across from him, feeling a little lighter just being near him. "Long day?" he asked, his tone gentle. Emily nodded, letting out a deep breath. "Yeah, I feel like I've been working nonstop. It's all coming together, but I'm just tired, you know?" Liam leaned back in his chair, studying her for a moment. "You've been pushing yourself hard, but I'm proud of you. You're doing amazing things, Emily. I don't think you give yourself enough credit." His words hit her differently this time. It wasn't just praise, it felt like he truly believed in her. She met his eyes, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice quieter than usual. There was a pause, and for the first time in a while, Emily realized just how much Liam had come to mean to her. She had started this journey focused on her dreams, but now, it was hard to ignore the connection she felt with him. Liam smiled, leaning in slightly. "You know, I've been thinking," he began, his voice lower, a bit more serious than usual. "I've seen how much you've grown in the past few weeks. You've been pushing yourself in ways I know weren't easy, but you've done it with so much heart. You're stronger than you realize." Emily felt a lump form in her throat. His words, his encouragement, meant more to her than she could express. "I'm just trying to make it work," she replied, trying to keep the emotions in check. Liam reached across the table, gently placing his hand over hers. The gesture was simple but meaningful, and it sent a wave of warmth through her. "You're making it work," he said, his voice steady and sincere. "And I'm here, Emily. If you ever need anything, whether it's about the studio or anything else, you don't have to do it alone." Her heart raced, the simple touch of his hand stirring something deep inside her. She had always been independent, always prided herself on figuring things out on her own, but in that moment, she realized just how much she had come to rely on Liam, not just for advice, but for support, for his belief in her. And it wasn't just the studio that had changed her life, it was him. "Thank you, Liam," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You've really helped me more than you know." There was a moment of silence between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was a quiet understanding, a shared connection that neither of them had to put into words. Liam's hand remained on hers, and Emily realized that what had started as a simple business arrangement, a mutual goal, had turned into something far more meaningful. She wasn't sure when the line had blurred between friendship and something deeper, but she knew that her feelings for Liam had shifted. As they sat there, the noise of the cafe faded into the background, and for a few minutes, all that mattered was the two of them, sitting together. Finally, Liam spoke again, breaking the silence. "I'm glad we're doing this," he said, his voice soft but firm. "I'm glad I met you, Emily." She smiled, feeling a wave of affection for him that she couldn't deny. "Me too," she said, her heart full. "I didn't expect any of this, but I'm really glad I met you too." For the first time in a long while, Emily felt like everything was falling into place. Her dreams, her future, and maybe even her heart. The road ahead wasn't going to be easy, but she wasn't alone. And that made all the difference. As they finished their coffee, Emily knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just about the studio anymore. This was about finding something real, something lasting, and she wasn't ready to let it go. The weeks passed in a blur of excitement and hard work as Emily continued building her art studio, inching closer to her dream with every step. Liam had been there every step of the way, offering advice, encouragement, and even helping her organize her finances. The two of them had grown closer, their relationship deepening with each passing day. What had started as a simple business arrangement, Liam helping her navigate the complexities of starting her studio, had blossomed into something more. Emily had found herself thinking about him more often than she'd like to admit. It was no longer just about the studio or the help he'd given her. It was about him, his kindness, his belief in her, and the quiet way he made her feel seen. They had spent countless hours talking about their hopes and dreams, about the future, and, slowly, about the possibility of something more. But neither of them had yet addressed the unspoken feelings lingering between them. One evening, as Emily was finishing up paperwork for the studio, she received a text from Liam. "Hey, I've been thinking. There's this event next week for local artists. I'd love for you to come with me. It's at a gallery downtown, and it could be a great opportunity to network, see other artists, and get more ideas for your studio. What do you think?" Emily's heart skipped a beat. An event like that could be a huge opportunity for her. But there was also something else about it. The thought of spending more time with Liam outside of their usual meetings. It was almost like a date, though neither of them had ever really defined what they were. She wasn't sure if she was ready to take that step, but she also knew that the thought of seeing him outside of a work context felt exciting. She quickly typed back, "That sounds amazing. I'd love to go. Thank you for thinking of me." The night of the event, Emily arrived at the gallery, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. The place was buzzing with energy, filled with artists, collectors, and admirers of the local art scene. The walls were lined with paintings, sculptures, and photography, and the atmosphere was alive with conversations about art, creativity, and inspiration. Emily's heart raced as she looked around, feeling a little out of place among all the polished professionals, but Liam was by her side, offering a calming presence. He looked effortlessly stylish in a well-tailored suit, his confidence evident in the way he moved through the crowd. Emily couldn't help but admire the way he navigated the room with ease. He introduced her to a few people, and she was struck by how much respect he had in the art world, despite his being more of a businessman than an artist. As they walked around the gallery, admiring the art, Emily felt a sense of belonging she hadn't anticipated. The more she talked to people, the more her confidence grew. But what she didn't expect was how close Liam stayed to her, always offering encouragement and making sure she was comfortable. They stopped in front of a large painting, one that Emily couldn't stop staring at. It was a depiction of a stormy sea, vibrant blues and grays swirling together in an almost chaotic way, yet there was a beauty in the chaos. "It's beautiful," Emily said, her voice filled with awe. Liam smiled, his eyes softening. "It is. I'm glad you like it." He turned to her, his expression suddenly more serious. "You've come a long way, Emily. You've made this dream a reality, and I'm proud of you." His words sent a warmth through her chest, and for a moment, she forgot about the crowd around them. It felt like just the two of them, standing in front of the painting, connected by something more than words. "I couldn't have done it without you," she said quietly, meeting his gaze. She wasn't sure when it had happened, but somewhere along the way, she had started to rely on him not just for help with the studio, but for emotional support, too. Liam looked at her, his expression unreadable for a moment. Then he spoke softly, his voice carrying an unexpected vulnerability. "I'm glad I could help, Emily. But I want you to know that I'm here for you, no matter what. Not just with the studio, but for everything." Emily's heart skipped a beat at his words, and she felt the weight of his sincerity. This wasn't just about the studio anymore. It was about something deeper, something neither of them had been ready to admit. But in that moment, standing in front of the painting, she realized she couldn't deny what was growing between them. As the evening wore on, the tension between them grew more palpable. They danced around the idea of their feelings, never quite acknowledging them, but always coming back to the way they made each other feel. Eventually, the event began to wind down, and Emily felt a mixture of satisfaction and longing. She had accomplished so much, and yet there was still something missing. She couldn't ignore the way Liam's presence had affected her, the way he had become such an integral part of her life. When it was time to leave, Liam turned to her, his hand brushing against hers as they walked toward the exit. "I'm glad you came tonight," he said quietly. "I think you're ready for this next step, Emily. You've got everything you need to succeed." Emily smiled, but it wasn't just the words that made her heart flutter. It was the way he looked at her, the depth in his gaze, the unspoken connection that had finally come to the surface. As they stepped out into the cool night air, Emily knew that something had shifted between them, and she wasn't sure where it would lead, but she was ready to find out. The days that followed the gallery event were filled with a quiet tension that neither Emily nor Liam seemed ready to address. They had come so far, yet neither of them was willing to take that final step. Emily couldn't help but replay the moment in her mind when Liam had looked at her, his eyes filled with sincerity, his hand brushing against hers as they left the gallery. That night, as she lay in bed, she realized how much she had come to depend on him. It wasn't just about the studio anymore, it was about him. And somewhere along the way, she had started to feel something deeper, something she hadn't expected. Liam, too, had been quiet in the days after the event. He had continued to offer his support for her studio, always checking in, offering advice. But there was a distance between them that hadn't been there before. It wasn't the same easy camaraderie they'd shared in the beginning. Now, there was a layer of uncertainty, a hesitation that neither of them knew how to break through. Then, one afternoon, as Emily was wrapping up work at the studio, she received a message from Liam. "Can we meet? I think it's time we talk." Her heart raced as she read the text. What did he mean? Was this it? Was this the conversation they had both been avoiding? She quickly typed back, "Of course. Where?" They agreed to meet at a small park near the studio, a quiet spot where they could talk without distractions. Emily arrived early, her nerves getting the best of her as she paced around the park, glancing at her phone every few seconds. When Liam finally arrived, he looked different, his usual calm demeanor replaced by something more serious, more vulnerable. He walked up to her slowly, his gaze meeting hers, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. "I've been thinking about everything," Liam finally said, his voice low. "About us, about what's been happening. I don't want to keep avoiding it." Emily's heart skipped a beat. She could feel the weight of his words, the heaviness in the air between them. She nodded slowly, unsure of what to say. "I've been feeling it too," she admitted. "It's hard to ignore, and I don't want to pretend anymore. But I'm also scared." Liam stepped closer, his hand brushing against hers once more. "I don't want to be scared either," he said quietly. "I care about you, Emily, more than I thought I would. And I don't want to lose what we've built, both with the studio and with each other." Emily felt her chest tighten at his words. She had never heard him speak like this before, so open, so raw. "I care about you too," she whispered, her voice shaky. "But I'm still not sure what this is, what we are. I'm scared of messing it up, of complicating things." Liam took a deep breath, his eyes never leaving hers. "We don't have to figure it all out right now," he said. "But I want to try, Emily. I want to see where this can go. Together." The tension that had built between them over the past few weeks seemed to dissipate in that moment, replaced by something lighter, something hopeful. Emily felt a rush of emotions, relief, excitement, fear, but most of all, she felt like she wasn't alone anymore. For the first time in a long time, she felt like someone truly understood her, someone who wanted to be there, not just for her studio, but for her. "I want that too," she said, her voice steady now. "I think I've been afraid of this, of what it could mean. But I don't want to be afraid anymore." Liam smiled, a soft, genuine smile that made her heart flutter. "Then we'll take it one step at a time," he said. "No pressure. Just us, figuring it out as we go." As they stood there, in the quiet park, Emily realized that this was the beginning of something new. Something uncertain, but something real. She didn't know where it would lead, but for the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid to find out. The days that followed their conversation in the park were filled with a sense of quiet hope. Emily and Liam had decided to take things slow, allowing their connection to grow naturally, without rushing into anything. It was a relief for Emily to finally acknowledge what had been there all along, her feelings for Liam, and to hear that he felt the same way. There was no pressure anymore, just the freedom to explore what this could become. With the studio finally coming together, Emily's dream was no longer just a distant thought. It was real, something she could touch, something that was hers. Liam continued to be her biggest supporter, offering encouragement and practical advice as she made the final preparations. It wasn't just about business anymore. He was there, not as a mentor or a guide, but as someone who truly cared about her, who believed in her. One evening, after a long day of setting up, Emily sat down on the couch in her small apartment, her body aching from the work, but her heart full. Her phone buzzed. She smiled when she saw Liam's name on the screen. "Hey, how's it going?" he asked, as usual, his tone light and casual. She replied quickly, telling him about the day's progress. "It's getting there. I'm so close, Liam. I can almost taste it," she typed, feeling a burst of pride. A few moments later, he replied, "I can't wait to see it. I'm so proud of you, Emily. You've come so far." His words were simple, but they meant the world to her. She had heard those words before, but this time, they hit differently. He wasn't just talking about the studio. He was talking about her, the woman she was becoming. Emily's fingers hovered over her phone as she thought about how to respond. She wanted to say something more, something that captured how much his support meant to her, but the words felt inadequate. Finally, she typed, "Thank you, Liam. You've been amazing through all of this. I couldn't have done it without you." She paused before sending it, as if the words were too much to admit. But it was true. Without Liam, she might have given up on the idea of opening the studio long ago. He had been the spark that kept her going, the steady hand that guided her when she was ready to falter. The next day, she found herself walking through the nearly finished studio, admiring the progress she had made. The walls were lined with artwork, the space was open and airy, and it felt like a reflection of who she was becoming. It was more than just a studio. It was her sanctuary, a place where her creativity could thrive. She couldn't wait to share it with the world. Later that evening, Liam texted her again. "How's the studio looking now? I'm dying to see it." Emily's heart skipped a beat. She had been thinking about him all day, wondering when the right moment would come. She quickly typed back, "It's almost ready. How about you come by tomorrow? I'd love for you to see it in person." She held her breath as she hit send, hoping he would say yes. Within seconds, Liam replied, "I'd love that. I'll be there." The next day, when Liam walked into the studio, Emily felt a mix of excitement and nerves. He was seeing it, the culmination of her hard work, her dreams, and his unwavering support. Liam looked around, his expression one of admiration. "It's incredible, Emily," he said, his voice filled with awe. "You've really done it." Emily smiled, feeling a flush of pride. "It's all thanks to you," she said softly. Liam turned to face her, his eyes locking with hers. There was a moment of silence between them, a tension that had been building since their conversation in the park. He took a step toward her, his presence filling the space. "I meant what I said, Emily. I care about you. More than I ever expected to." His voice was low, sincere. Emily's heart raced as she looked up at him, feeling her breath catch in her throat. "I care about you too, Liam," she whispered. And just like that, the unspoken feelings between them were no longer hidden. They had both been afraid of what this could mean, but in that moment, neither of them could deny it. They had found something real, something worth holding on to. Liam reached out, gently taking her hand in his. "I'm glad we took the time to figure this out," he said, his thumb brushing against her skin. Emily smiled, feeling the warmth of his touch spread through her. "Me too," she said. "I think this is just the beginning for us." And with that, everything that had seemed uncertain before began to fall into place. The studio was finally hers, and so was Liam. As they stood there, hand in hand, Emily realized that her dreams were no longer just dreams. They were her reality, and she had someone by her side to share it with. A future she had once thought impossible was now within her reach, and with Liam, she knew anything was possible. Weeks passed, and the studio slowly became a place of constant growth for Emily. She had finally opened her doors to the public, and the response had been overwhelmingly positive. It wasn't just the art that filled the space. It was the energy of a dream finally realized. And through it all, Liam had been there, by her side, supporting her, and encouraging her every step of the way. He was there for every late night, every new artist that walked through her door, and every breakthrough she made. Emily's life had shifted in ways she couldn't have predicted. She wasn't just a woman running an art studio. She was someone who had found love, a deep, real love with Liam. It had been a slow burn, but it was now undeniable. It was the night of their first official opening gala, an event she had been planning for weeks. The studio was lit up with string lights, the walls lined with her favorite pieces of art, and the air was filled with a sense of accomplishment. As Emily stood at the front of the room, she felt her heart swell with pride. This wasn't just her success, it was theirs. Liam had been with her through every step, and without him, none of it would have been possible. Liam walked up to her, his presence as comforting as it had always been. He smiled, his eyes gleaming with pride. "You've done it, Emily," he said softly, taking her hand. "This is amazing. I'm so proud of you." Emily squeezed his hand, feeling the warmth of his words settle deep in her heart. "I couldn't have done it without you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You've been here for me, not just for the studio, but for me. I never thought I could have this life, this love." She paused, her gaze locked on his. "And now I know I can." Liam smiled, his eyes softening as he stepped closer to her. "I'm glad you know that, Emily. Because I've been in love with you for a long time now, and I want to spend the rest of my life helping you build this dream of yours, and everything that comes with it." Emily's heart fluttered as she looked up at him, her breath caught in her throat. "Liam," she whispered. She didn't need to say anything else. She knew. She had known for some time. There had never been anyone else who had made her feel so supported, so understood, and so loved. Liam took her hand in both of his gaze steady. "Will you marry me, Emily? I want to spend the rest of my life with you, building this future together." Tears welled in Emily's eyes as she stared at him, her heart racing. She had never imagined a future like this, but here it was, real, solid, and full of everything she had ever dreamed of. The life she had built, the love she had found, and the dreams that were finally coming true. "Yes," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Yes, Liam, I will marry you." The room around them seemed to fade as Liam pulled her into his arms, his kiss soft and full of everything they had built together. The cheers from their friends and the applause that filled the air were just background noise to the feeling of completion, of everything falling into place. As they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, Emily knew that this was only the beginning. Her journey had been full of twists and turns, but it had led her to this moment, to a life filled with love, with purpose, and with the promise of more to come. Together, they had built something beautiful, and with Liam by her side, Emily knew that the future was bright. The crowd's cheers faded into the distance as they stood there, hands intertwined, ready to face whatever came next. The future was theirs, and they would face it together. And for the first time, Emily felt like she had everything she needed to make it. Love, passion, and a future that was waiting to be written, side by side.